It is 3:30. I now officially call this meeting of the Youth Council to order. We will just see who's here. Okay, when I just say your name to say hi. Manuela is not here yet. Alyssa?
Here.
Lauren?
Here.
Megan? Megan is not here yet. Nick?
Here.
Awesome. Summer?
Here.
Uma?
Here.
Yana? I'm here. Anthony?
Here.
Is here. Maggie? I don't see her. Jenna?
Here.
Jenna. I don't see William. Then we have Ollie.
He's running a few minutes.
Here.
Oh, he
Hi,
is
Ollie.
here. Okay.
And Thomas.
Here.
Oh, hi everyone. Glad to see everyone. We all had a good break and had a good starting school. Anyone from the public here to address us? We have Councilor Julie Smith-Galvin here.
Sure. Could I say a few words?
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to stop in. I think I came to one of your very first meetings, and I know since then you have done so much work, and that we recently expanded the council to include new members. And I just want to say that, I personally am very appreciative of everything that you're doing around town, and I know that many others are. I recognize many of you from your work on the environmental issues. I know obviously you've been involved in the logo issue, and I just think your voice is so important for us to have in town. And thank you. That's all I'm here to say. I'm going to stay for a little while and look at the great work you're doing. But if anybody ever has any questions or wants to reach out or understand kind of where we're looking at things from the town council perspective, please feel free to do so. All my information is on the website.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else in public?
Hi, everyone. I'm Marissa. I'm an outreach counselor for Mass Support. My colleague, Sarah, has invited me to come see the presentation. She told me you guys put a lot of work into it, so I'm really excited, and I can talk more when you guys are done. Thank you for having me. My colleague, Cindy, will be here in a little bit, I think.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? See, now we will move on. Next, the approval of the minutes from last meeting. Anthony, take it away.
All right, so last meeting, which is I think it was an hour and a half, it was a super lengthy meeting, but we got a lot into it. So we first started by having a discussion with Anne Danahy, BU communications professor, about sort of how to host a virtual forum and sort of how to best facilitate a forum of that kind in order to receive the most opinions while mitigating the most sort of kind of passionate argument and sort of any type of inhibitors to preventing actual critical and constructive discussion from occurring. After that, we sort of had a logo update. That was before the public forum on the 25th of February. So I believe school committee member Colleen Guida joined us to discuss what the school committee has been going through with regard to that process. And she announced that date for the public forum. Following that, we had a really great discussion with State Senator Jason Lewis and his daughter Jessie Lewis about Indigenous logos and how he's been working at the state level to sort of with regard to the implications of Indigenous logos and the Massachusetts state flag. And his daughter Jessie was one of the head student figures in replacing the Winchester State Gyms logo. And so it was really, really great to hear from their insights. And we also had just a quick update from the Communications and Outreach Subcommittee, where we talked a little bit about the mental health survey, which now obviously all the results are in. We've analyzed them. We have myself, Lauren, and Alyssa have a presentation ready to go. Credit to Alyssa to making that survey. She did so much work with it. It was really, really great. And we also just had a quick update from Maddie about Safe Routes to School and some other liaison updates. And I believe that was about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from last meeting?
A motion.
Thanks, Summer. To hear a second.
Second.
I second.
Thanks, Jenna. I will just now call the roll. Alyssa,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Summer,
Yes.
Uma,
Yes.
Yana,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
and Jenna.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a little quick logo update. You all probably know most of it, but we have the forum, which was good. We had a bunch of people from town speak, which was awesome. The school committee did a great job running it. It was super well thought out and it was awesome. Then we put stuff in the paper, but nothing too consequential. Lauren, do you have anything or anyone else want to add?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about a few important upcoming dates. So like Jack said, we had the public forum last Thursday, I believe. It was pretty well attended. Everyone speaking did a great job. I know I got a lot out of it, and I hope the school committee did too. So that was great. And so on Wednesday, March 17th, the school committee and WCAT are hosting a virtual public panel with members of Indigenous tribes from Massachusetts, so we can hear from local Indigenous people and their point of view on this issue. So that'll be fun. And then the day after that, Thursday, March 18th, a survey will be sent out to, I believe, all members of the Wakefield community. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think all members. And I think there will be a separate one for students and a separate one for residents, so we can gauge kind of where people are at. And then April 27th is the town election. So that's when 18 and older can vote. There will be a non-binding question on that ballot. So non-binding basically means it's not an official decision, but it's just kind of for the school committee to get a gauge of where people are at, if they support retiring the logo or if they want to keep it. That will help the school committee determine next steps. So yeah, I think that's it. Keep having healthy conversations and educating yourself. I know that it's still a big issue, but I think we're doing a really great job handling it. So yeah, I think that's all. Jack or Catherine, if you have anything to add, let me know.
And Lauren, I have a question, because, one of the reasons we elect school committee is that they educate themselves on issues. And in the survey, is it going to ask, have you watched the forum or did you see the March 17th forum, just to kind of understand if people, for the students? Because I think the important piece is that the education before
right
making a decision.
I'm not sure if that will be in the survey, but I think that's kind of why they did the survey the day after the panel, so it would kind of be fresh in everyone's minds. I can reach out to Mrs. Purcell or just someone on the school committee and find that out and let everyone know. That sounds good.
Awesome.
All I have to say is just, I'm just so impressed with how all of you are handling this. And sometimes when, yet again, negative things come out about the youth council, how you guys continue to take the high road. And I'm just so proud of you.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm very proud of all of us. I think we've done a really good job. We've really shown that young people can work in government and still take criticism, but not feel sad about it. We can still work. So awesome. Next agenda, mental health survey presentation. So Alyssa, Lauren, Anthony, you have the floor. I think Alyssa, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. All right, Lauren, you can take it away.
Awesome. So before I begin, there's an electrician in my house. So if you hear banging or like anything, if I suddenly freeze and the power goes out, I just want to put that out there. Okay, so Alyssa, see, here's an example of some banging. I apologize. So Alyssa did a great job putting together this survey. It was sent out to all high school students. It took place during homeroom advisory, so people could be fully supported and have help if they needed to access it. So, all right. So we would like to thank the guidance department and administration, because they were so amazing throughout this whole process of, letting us do this. And, they were just so open to it, so open to the help that we provided them. So we got a total of 604 responses. So there are about 900 to 1,000 students at the high school. So for a survey that's, not mandatory by the school, this is amazing. So I'm very proud of the turnout for that. So not to brag or anything, but the juniors did win in having the largest turnout. So juniors had the most, sophomores had the least, but a really great part of this is that it was pretty much an even split throughout all of the grades, which is awesome, because that, for all of the responses, that gives us a really great, just a wide range of responses that we can look at. So it's not just centralized on one grade. So then for pandemic specific slides, these were more just like, I learned a lot in school. And then this was really just to see where people were at with before the pandemic and then during. So over 60% of students said that they learned much less than before. So right now they're learning less than before they were during the pandemic. I know it's kind of confusing. So about a quarter of the students saw no change, which I guess is a good thing, but I think we should focus on that most students said that they were learning less. One point that I want to make is that it's very widely known by educators and administrators that no content is being left behind, but these survey results really don't reflect that. And, we know everyone's trying their best, and it's super hard because we have so much less time in class than before. So you have to adjust that. But I think it's important to note that these results don't reflect that point. So then over 60% of students said that they do fun things much less or less than before the pandemic. And I think a lot of this comes with the social isolation that's kind of being forced upon us with, either having to quarantine or just your comfort level in general, or other people's comfort levels. And with altered school schedules, with cohorts and, only for the high school, only being in school 2 days a week, there's a lot less of that easy and almost forced social interaction that we had before. So I think that's a big contributor. And then sports as well, those are so fun with your friends and your peers, but that isn't happening in the same way to the fullest extent that it used to. So about 80% of students reported that their stress and anxiety levels are slightly or much higher than before the pandemic. So I think this is probably one of the biggest things that we need to focus on. I think, personally, I felt this. I know a lot of us on the youth council have, a lot of my friends have. So you're certainly not alone in feeling this, but if it can be prevented, it should be. And I'm so glad that we did this survey, because now we know, and now we can focus on our next steps. Like I said before, a lot of this can probably be attributed to the lack of social interaction that we have with school and sports. And there's also increased isolation from family. A lot of us, we're lucky in Wakefield that, we're kind of a tight-knit community, but some of us, for me, for example, my siblings live in out west. So I haven't seen them since probably the summer of 2019, I think. So it's been crazy. And I think a lot of people are feeling this way. So you're definitely not alone. And then let's see. So 80% of students have said that they were able to maintain or grow connections with their family and friends and peers throughout the pandemic. So I think this is awesome, because even though we are so isolated and, we might be in quarantine, we're still able to maintain these connections. One thing that I would like to point out that made me very happy is that a lot of these connections are being sustained virtually, or safely with masks and social distancing, which is great because that keeps, numbers down. It might not be the healthiest thing, but it works for now. So there are a variety of activities that have been used, that students have been using to cope with the stress and anxiety, like sleeping, reading, video games, exercising, listening or singing and playing music, talking to friends or family, or writing. I'm in awe because these are just so healthy, and I just love it. And I think that although COVID, it's a really stinky thing, like it's just the worst. But I feel like a lot of these coping mechanisms that people are forming, and getting to know what works and what doesn't, they'll kind of carry through outside of COVID. So I think that's it for me, and I think Alyssa is up next.
Yes, so then we had a section that focused more on academic aspects and mental health just in general of students. So we asked them how often they worry about school issues, and about 70% of students said they worry about school fairly often or very often. And due to the pandemic, a lot of adults and maybe some teachers think school is a lot less stressful for students just because we're not in school all the time as full-time students. But this shows that it's really not that way. A lot of students are becoming more stressed because they have to teach themselves material on asynchronous days and things like that. So this just kind of like what Lauren was saying about how people are maintaining that nothing is being lost, but students are saying they're learning less. It's just kind of a disconnect. This, we asked if students felt nervous, worried, or tense for more than 2 weeks in a row. And obviously, it's kind of a concerning split. It's almost half and half that said yes and no. So even though yes is the minority, it's still a very big minority of students who responded that said they did feel this way for more than 2 weeks in a row, which is something we need to take into account, even though it's not the majority.
Alyssa, can I just say something? We have a similar question in the YRBS during non-COVID time, and that's usually around 20%.
Okay.
This almost more than double.
Okay,
50% increase.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely especially important to focus on since it's double normal. We did ask what students' single greatest school-related challenge was, and a lot of them had to do with time management and motivation and just making sure they kept up with their work. A lot of students did express concerns about having to teach themselves in asynchronous learning and how their teachers tend to lean towards using in-person time for tests and quizzes rather than making sure students understand information or going through notes in person rather than on Zoom or posting a video on Classroom. And grading policies was also something students brought up. Maybe like they want it to be more lenient since this year is so stressful and different, and they might not have as much time to review material with the teacher, even though there are those PM learning blocks and there is some in-school time. A lot of students do feel like it might not be enough. And a lot of the focusing aspect had to do with Zoom because things are in different spots for different cohorts, and just sitting there on your computer all day and having to pay attention can be hard for some students. And we did ask that students tell us what could be done to support them more in their academics, since about 20% of students said that they didn't feel supported in their academics. We felt that it was important to give them a spot to say, this is what can be done. So this really corresponds with the challenges in the slide we just showed, with teachers providing more resources, maybe just not as assignments, because I know a lot of teachers they're really trying to make sure students understand, and they're trying to keep things reasonable levels of work, but maybe just things like that, just resources, but not as homework, more understanding grading policies, which was something that was brought up multiple times. And then the learning during in-person classes was also something. And a few students did mention that teachers like randomly call on people during Zooms, which can be stressful for them. And that might take away from how much they're able to learn during those kinds of classes. Just the stress of being on Zoom, the stress of having to have your camera on, combined with the stress of the pandemic and everything else that's going on in the world. And we did ask students who were in hybrid or in-person model to tell us if they felt safe in the building COVID-wise in terms of cleaning procedures, masks, social distancing. And about 37% responded that they only felt safe sometimes or none of the time, which is a pretty big number, even though it's a minority. That's almost 40% of students. So they suggested that mask wearing be enforced better, having teachers maybe distance a little more during class if they have to come close to help students, and kind of just all the procedures that are in place, enforce them a little better, because the halls might get especially crowded in certain spots if that's the only way you can access like one staircase. That did seem to be a concern a lot of kids had.
So we also sort of had a section of the survey devoted to just people who had experienced a full quarantine and how that exactly went for them throughout those up to 2 weeks. So we first asked just to get a decent number of to get a wager of the number of students who quarantined. Actually, personally, I was very surprised to see that nearly 40% of people did say they had a quarantine or self-isolate. I fortunately have never had to, but just to think that like in this, with respect to Wakefield High at large, this is around like 400 students having to 450 who have had to quarantine. Just think of that many people. It's honestly mind-boggling to me, and I think that really shows that this is sort of an issue that needs to be addressed, definitely, for sure. So with regard to their experiences while in quarantine, many students sort of had mixed feelings. They felt like some said they were supported by their teachers, some didn't. I believe it was like an actual 50-50 split or very close to that when that question was asked. And they also said many responses lifted concerns about teacher communication with assignments, materials, and due dates. So definitely communication with teachers on a pretty consistent basis definitely aided those students who felt as if they were supported. And other students also said who weren't as supported would have sort of liked to have had more recorded classes or maybe an opportunity to zoom into classes, which obviously is certainly tough, but could be pulled off definitely in certain instances. So I think definitely those types of concerns need to be raised, as we know that there are hundreds of students who are having the quarantine or had quarantine over the past school year so far. So going off of that, we specifically asked for those students who did not feel supported, what could have been done to make them feel more supported. And many students, as I previously said that sort of having that consistent sense of communication is really key. So teachers responding emails, also teachers making due dates clear, sort of just establishing a set timeline for their assignments and making sure they're on a specific sort of path and don't feel as if they're disconnected from the rest of their class. And I said, with kind of similar to having recorded like Zoom session notes, I know that my math teacher does this for our asynchronous work. Also giving students access to PowerPoints that were used in class is super helpful for them, and just maybe a lesser workload for people who tested positive. And even if they aren't like fully sick, maybe just even if they just have a headache, it certainly couldn't inhibit the level of work that they're able to mentally and physically handle. So teachers being aware of that is definitely key for many students in receiving the support they need. So our next steps sort of are to continue to meet with the Wake Memorial High School Guidance Department to find more like specific details about these results and to see where we specifically would like to focus, and also working with the administration and staff with regard to that, and also providing resources to students throughout our platforms to promote reaching out for help and ways to cope with stress, anxiety, and other emotions. So we're hoping that with these results, obviously this is only the beginning with what we're doing, and hopefully we can really turn those. I think some of those numbers are certainly promising, but we would like to turn those into a even more positive direction for sure. And that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we have Mass Support chime in on these? For Anthony, Alyssa. I actually had a question. For seniors, did you guys find anything about college apps and how where they were feeling and how they felt any support from the guidance office, or was that not really discussed?
That was not on there, and I didn't see any responses with that, but I am assuming it does contribute to the levels of stress having experienced it. But now that it's over, that might have not affected it as much as it would have if we sent this out in, say, November or December.
Cool. Catherine?
I was just going to ask for youth council members, were you surprised by anything, or was anything? Oh, and first of all, fantastic job. That was like, that was better than a lot of adult presentations that I see on data. So great summary, team. But yeah, I'm curious, a lot of that was a shock to me. Some of that was surprising. I'm curious what all of you think, if anyone has any reactions or if have any questions.
Maggie?
I was just overall shocked that so few people had been in quarantine for COVID. I thought it was going to be a higher percentage.
True. I do know a lot of people who have had to quarantine. So, Ali?
I just wanted to say that it's really important that the work that they're doing with this and how it's really mind-opening to see all this data collected.
Yes. Anyone else? So we have people from Mass Support here. We have Cindy and Marissa. So if you guys have any analysis or anything you want to add to that, that would be awesome.
Hi, everyone. That was such a great presentation and so interesting, the data that was collected. So just great job, guys. We at Mass Support we are specific for COVID, the pandemic, and we're just offering free resources. And we do coping groups and we do individual counseling sessions completely free and anonymous. We've worked with some schools like Wakefield, and we're also doing youth advisory groups. And we're doing basically what your survey was, asking questions about how it's been affecting teens and what you guys need from us or from teachers. And it's been really interesting because we've heard a lot of similar things like that, but also some other interesting facts that come up that not everybody has mentioned. And I think your presentation really pointed out the most important aspects. Cindy, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you guys did an amazing job. Alyssa, I reviewed it when you sent it to us a few days ago. It was amazing. And I think, like Catherine mentioned, that there aren't many adults that would be able to put that together. So kudos to you guys for doing that. It was amazing work. No, I think Marissa sort of covered it all. Mass Support basically, we've come to be because of COVID and the pandemic, and we provide free community outreach and supportive services. And I think that we'd be able to sort of fill in that sort of gap as far as developing coping groups for skills and how to manage even better. Now that well, I'm not sure if you guys are, but other districts are going back into school a little bit more frequently. So we can definitely help managing with that transition too. So we're here to sort of help in any way that we can.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Alyssa, Anthony, and Lauren, or for mass support? They anything they want to talk about?
I have a question for our friends at Mass Support. First of all, thank you for coming. This is awesome. So as leaders in the town and kind of within our schools, how can we best support our peers during, just this hard time?
So I think that you guys are already doing it. I mean, as a group in itself, you're reaching out, asking these questions and getting the information, and then getting that information back to, staff and support services within the school. And then for you guys to also reach out of your community, like to us, I think is amazing. And then we can sort of, like I said before, help sort of fill in the gaps where we need to. But it's just communication. It's just talking and getting the information. And even if it's one person that that is feeling a certain way about something, you communicating that to others is going to be like tremendously helpful.
And just to add on to that, I think, it's so important to hear what you guys are going through, because we don't hear so much from, high schoolers. We hear, the younger kids are getting, are having a hard time with Zoom and school and online work, and they can't focus, but we don't, or the kids in college, we don't hear so much from you. And I think getting your voices out, like Cindy said, and telling us what works and what doesn't work for you, because you are the ones experiencing this, and you are the experts for, online school. So I think, just like Cindy said, speaking up and getting these surveys out, which I think is so great. And I love that idea. And I'm gonna definitely want to talk to, youth task force about maybe sending out more surveys like this. So stuff like that, yes.
Maggie, your hand's raised.
Yeah, so this is completely off topic, but I saw a couple of you guys speak at the Warrior Forum the other day, and I just wanted to say you guys did an amazing job.
Thanks, Maggie. Anyone else have questions for mass support or for Alyssa, Lauren, Anthony?
I was just wondering, I have a couple places I'd love to have you guys come and present this information, some of the groups that I work in town. And then also I think it's important for parents to see this information. So I'm just thinking we have an upcoming parent university. And I would love to share some of this data at parent university. So we'll have to talk to you, Alyssa, and the committee offline to figure out how that could happen, because I think this would be really important for parents to see this.
I totally agree. I was just going to ask, I think it's also important for the school committee and the just the school board in general and the administration to see this, because I know at my school we have a large disconnect from our administration to how students are actually feeling. So I think it's really important for our administrations to hear this. So have you guys talked to anyone in school committee or in the office?
We've met with guidance a ton of times about this, and Mr. Robinson is currently talking to Mrs. McLeod to try and see how we can present to them and the rest of the staff, whether it's we pre-record a Zoom presentation and send it out to them before their next whole staff meeting, and we're there to answer questions and talk to them about what can be done better and what can be changed, or if it's we come and present to them. And going to the school committee is definitely something we've considered, so we can definitely talk about that more too.
Definitely, especially since if we're going to transition to more in-person learning, I think this data is good to analyze as well.
Yeah, and if anyone has any thoughts or ideas on specific things we can suggest to implement changes or help support students better, please feel free to send them to Anthony, Lauren, or I. We love to hear it, and we can totally bring it to administration, school committee, whoever we present to.
Do you guys have an update on the Galvin survey? What's going on with that one?
I haven't heard back from Mr. Cedroni in a little bit, so I'm gonna reach out to him soon and try and see what's going on, if we can get results, if they've already sent it out. But yeah.
I actually have the results for the
you do?
survey. Yes.
Do you mind sending them at some point so we can kind of look through those too?
Yeah, I'll send them to you right now. There were some similarities, and there were a lot of, they also asked some things that were what would have been some positive things, and I think you guys asked that too. So a lot of Galvin youth said that there's increased time with their family. They're having more family dinners. So some of those kind of protective factors. They asked a lot about, because the Galvin students are doing synchronous Zoom learning 3 days a week. So that's been a struggle. I don't know if Jenna or any of Thomas or Ali, any of you can chime in on this, but they said, what are things that are really making it hard for you to do Zoom learning? So they were saying, having my phone out and so I think there are some different strategies around the Galvin too. So it would be nice to kind of put the whole piece together.
Yeah. And if we go to the school committee, we could definitely make a presentation with both of them and kind of find some underlying themes between both the high school and Galvin.
And do we know any next steps on what we're going to try to act on? Have you guys talked to guidance about what moving forward, what things are going to look like?
I think our first next step is probably going to be meeting with administration, presenting it to the high school staff and potentially the middle school staff as well, because that will help us kind of make a plan to see where they're at. And then I think we're hoping to work with administration and the school committee to make like just kind of parallel changes to the results of the survey.
Cool. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, so seeing on, thank you guys. That was awesome. Super well put together. The communication subcommittee is doing amazing work. And your meetings, great meetings. On the next agenda, we have more stuff, mental health. Before we do that, anything else for mass support, Cindy and Marissa? Any other questions? Or do you guys have anything else you want to add to our discussion?
No, I think we covered everything. I'll just put in my email in the chat, and you guys, if you ever need to email me for anything, feel free. Just again, great job, guys. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Terrific work.
No problem. It's great to have you here, and we're trying each day to help more in our community and our peers and mental health. Speaking of that, Lauren wanted to talk about a mental health subcommittee to work more on this. So Lauren, you have the floor.
Yes. So I would once again like to credit Alyssa with all the work that she did on the survey and putting the results together. So we were thinking a lot of the I think I've said this before, it's like the communications and outreach subcommittee is almost like the good junk drawer for the youth council. So we obviously do a lot of outreach and communications, but we're also doing a lot with the mental health. So I think it would probably be helpful to form a separate subcommittee for mental health. And then it can kind of just like disband once we, our work kind of slows down. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I don't know. Jack, I'm assuming someone has to make a motion to create it.
Yeah, so make a motion and someone can second, and then we can set up stuff after that. So do I hear a motion to create a mental health subcommittee?
Oh, hold on, Jack. I just have a question. Maybe Julie can answer this. So if it's a short-term project, Julie, does it have to be a subcommittee, or can it be a shorter-term action team?
Adhoc committee or a working group. I don't think though that it changes the open meeting law at all. So it's really just semantics.
Okay, so it could be like a mental health working group, because I feel like it would be nice to keep subcommittees as things that are going to be ongoing, and mental health could be, but since it could be a mental health.
Yeah, I'm calling it a working group or an ad hoc. It just means you can be a little more flexible with expanding or disbanding it.
Mm-hmm. And I was talking to Alyssa about this as well, and I didn't know if we wanted to maybe do those under communications, because since they've already been working on it, we want to move have them create a working group, but what she was also saying is I think they would want to do one under the council, not under communications.
Yeah, we were thinking just under the youth council because, and if like we have to have things kind of combined, we can have a joint meeting or something like that. We can figure out how that works. And we want to have as many people be able to be a part of it as possible, not just people who are already on the communications outreach subcommittee, because we don't want this to kind of just be a short-term thing. We kind of want to see it carry over if it's into next term, or even more than that. We want to just have it open so people don't have to take on too much to be involved.
Okay, so what do you want to call it? Before we make a motion, do you want to do, are we doing a subcommittee, ad hoc, working group? Lauren, what do you think? Or Catherine? It's just semantics, but what do we think?
I like working group. I don't know. It's up to you guys. Working group sounds good.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to create a mental health working group?
I motion.
I motion.
Thanks, Maggie. Do I hear a second on that motion?
I second.
Thanks, Nick. We'll do a roll call vote on the motion to create a mental health working group. Alyssa?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Uma?
Yes.
Yana?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Jenna?
Yes.
And Will?
Yes.
Awesome. So Lauren can start working on that, and we can schedule meetings. So does anyone want to be on that specifically? Because I expect Lauren, Melissa, and Anthony will probably work on it, but anyone else want to join in on mental health stuff?
I can.
Nick, okay, so Nick, want to join anyone else?
If you guys want to like think about it, you could just email me or text me, and then we can kind of get going.
Mhm.
If that works.
Totally. Okay. So yeah, so Lauren, everyone just email Lauren if they want to. Lauren, if you want to like drop your email in the chat so people can just toss it up. Okay. So Catherine, do you have anything to say? I saw you unmute yourself. I didn't know.
Oh, no, I was just going to say it'd be helpful to have a couple Galvin students on that too, to really look at that Galvin data. So
Totally
if anyone's interested, it would be great.
Okay, and I can send out an email to, because I also have something to talk about for an email later, so we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, next agenda, update from communications outreach subcommittee. So you're doing a lot of talking today.
Yeah, you guys basically already heard it all. We're still like full force on the mental health. Obviously, that's going to kind of be transitioning over to the mental health working group now. But we're starting to think about how we can use the data we got from the survey and use it on our social medias and things like that to help give students resources and like encourage healthy coping and things like that.
Awesome.
I think.
Anthony, sorry, Lauren.
Okay, sorry. I think another thing that we're going to be working on is providing resources so people can make sure that if they're of age, making sure that people are registered to vote for the upcoming town election and just for future elections. So we'll probably be pushing that out on our social media.
Awesome. Anthony, do you have any updates on the newsletter? What's going on with that?
Yes, so the third newsletter, I'm hoping to have that done by the end of this weekend. And so I'm hoping that by the end of, I'm sorry, I keep saying this, but the end of next week, I'm hoping. So around the 12th, that weekend, that'll be I'll send that out to Ms. McLeod, so that'll be available to high school parents, and I'll send that out to Ali, so the PTO can also put that on their Facebook page, so it's also available to middle school parents. So that's the plan.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for Alyssa, Lauren, Anthony, or Ali? No. Awesome. So next up on the agenda, we have an update about Wakefield Vision 2030. Anthony, is that you? It is. Okay. Anthony, do we have any updates on what's going on with them? I've seen Jonathan post on Facebook all the time. So what's going on with them?
Yes, that is me. So I believe I previously mentioned this in another meeting, but I'm representing the Youth Council on the Advisory Committee for Wakefield Vision 2030. The Advisory Committee works with the MAPC the Metro Area Planning Council, who they are sort of a organization that works with, I believe, 107 communities throughout the Metro Boston area to sort of facilitate just envisioning for the future in a variety of different areas. So last night, actually, we did have our first public forum, which I believe was on mobility, recreational facilities, housing, and just overall growth with regard to infrastructure and green spaces. It was a really great public forum. I actually had a lot of fun with it, talking with other people about what the town needs, what should be preserved. And so we had some really great discussions about that. I believe there was also a survey released with regard to those first four. That public forum addressed those first four topics, and there'll be another public forum later in the spring to address the next four, and another one in June to address the final four. So this survey that was just released addresses those first four topics that were discussed last night. I can send that link to the survey out to everyone on the council. I can give that to you, Jack, if you want to just send that out through the youth council email. And that anyone can take it. It's a really, really well done survey. And I'm hoping that if anyone wants to join, I don't know the specific date for the next public forum, but if anyone wants to join that, they can definitely contact me. I can give you, I believe there's a registration link to prevent like Zoom bombing. So like you have to register and then they'll give you the Zoom link. But yeah, I would really, hoping that for the next public forum, I'm gonna definitely try to get some more youth representation on the public forum. I believe there were like 90 people last night. So it was some really great turnout. I did see some youth from the community. So I would love to see some more for sure.
I have to say, yeah, Anthony, the survey that Anthony's going to share, if all of you can do it, because it does have to do with some of the issues like Maggie's working on with in summer with Envision Wakefield and walkability and parks and things like that. So definitely youth voice. I had a youth, Elena, in my breakout group, and the input she had was fantastic. And it was just really from that youth perspective. So the more youth we can have, give that perspective, the more it'll benefit the whole community. So if you all as youth council members can really, I don't think the survey took me more than 6 or 7 minutes to do.
Awesome. I will send that out in a big email that I'll send out today or tomorrow. Anyone, any questions for Anthony? I do, Anthony. Is there anything specific you heard? Anything you want to share with us? Anything specific that you think we'd be interested in discussing more and talking about in that survey, like at the meeting?
So I essentially how the public forum worked last night was that they would the two members from the MAPC, Christian and Carlos, would present like that specific topic, and then people go into like breakout rooms of around like 10 to 15 people for around 15-20 minutes. So in those, I mean, personally, in my breakout room, one of the major topics was about sort of, I think mobility was a key issue. Like Catherine said, we were talking about like safe routes, and we're especially one of the key areas of discussion was that intersection by the high school with Hemlock Farm and the Hunt, and we were talking about how there aren't really that many students that walk or bike to the high school, even though they could possibly do so with their distance to the high school, but just don't because of how dangerous that area is. So I think mobility specifically for my break room, I'm not sure if that's the case for you, Catherine, as well, was definitely a specific area of discussion that was that a lot of people had different perspectives to talk about.
Great. Anyone else have any questions for Anthony at Wakefield Vision Wakefield? Okay. Next up, anyone else have any updates on their liaison petitions? Any new things they've talked about? Any new meetings? Ali?
So I don't know if you guys, I think that you guys know this, that I'm transitioning my liaison position to the PTO. So I have been invited to one of their meetings. So hopefully I will be able to update all of you at our next meeting. And if you have anything that you want me to share with them, you can just reach out to me.
Thank you. Yeah. If you have anything else, reach out to Ali. If you want to drop your email in the chat too, so if people have any questions. Nick, I saw you unmuted. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say this week Ed Dombrowski reached out to me and I participated in what's called the White Ribbon Campaign. I know Catherine knows about this because I talked to her about it. It's basically a small scale and a large scale global campaign against domestic violence in many communities. And I went in the WCAT studio yesterday and Ed interviewed me. I had to answer some questions regarding it and how we can tackle this issue in our community and improve it as a whole for the future.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, that's I think we usually have a white ribbon day at my school where kids like wear like buttons and stuff. So that's an awesome thing. Anyone else? Any updates? Liaisons? Anyone want to switch? Anyone having trouble talking to their liaison people? No. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have a little COVID-19 update. I know I asked Catherine to see if she could talk about that. Just see what's going on in town.
Sure. Can I can share my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys can see on our town website, we have our case count, which is trending down, thankfully, or leveling out. So if you're ever curious about stats in Wakefield, it's great. Jen McDonald, our content and communications manager, always updates this on Thursdays or Fridays. So you can kind of see the number of cases. So we're plateauing, and that's happening at the school too. So that's good to see. And you can kind of see our average daily cases coming down. I actually get a ding in my email every time we have a positive case. And I've definitely been getting less dings in my email over the last few weeks, which is nice. And you can kind of see the school data as well coming down. And then this average positivity rate, it was well over 6 or 7 earlier back in January. So it's down to 2.6. So that's a good metric to look at. More people are getting their vaccines. They've just opened it up to teachers. So hope is on the horizon, but still we all need to be vigilant because it is out there. And a lot of people I've talked to I do case management and contact tracing, are getting it even though they're wearing masks and stuff. So I'm not sure if that's more of the variants that are out there, but just continuing to be vigilant and practicing just the masking and the social distance when you can. I know it's hard. We're coming up on the year mark, so but there is hope on the horizon. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. So I saw on the news that I think we're doing high schoolers like at the end of this year. So is that going to be happening like when Wakefield and statewide too? We're going to start opening up vaccines for younger people? Because I know they said all adults by May should have access to a vaccine. So I know what Wakefield is planning on the distribution, or that like more of a state thing.
Well, it depends on the state and if we can get through the priority groups, and we have still priority groups in group 2 to get in phase 2 to get through. So we still, if we can get through all of them right now, the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson are for 18 and older, and then the Pfizer is for 16 and older. So, it's a possibility. So if the state gets more vaccines, then we can administer more. Right now, the governor took vaccines away from local health departments. So, how we were doing the big vaccination clinics here in town, we're not doing those anymore. He's pushed the focus back to the big vaccination sites and somewhat now to the healthcare providers. So that might swing back to us to be able to do those at the town, but it's really, it was stressful for us to try to even get the vaccine. So we can easily set up the clinic now, and we have that well-oiled machine, but it's it's very stressful because if we say we're going to vaccinate, 600, 800 people, you have to count on getting those vaccines. And there's a lot of stress on Ruth, my boss, and the Board of Health and everything. So my dream is to be able to vaccinate, especially all the seniors, so you guys can have your normal senior year or after vaccinating all the teachers.
Uma, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I have a quick question. So myself and I know a bunch of other high schoolers work at grocery stores, and I know that those are sort of essential workers, I think they're considered. And I was wondering, it doesn't sound like anything's definite at all, but when the vaccines could be rolling out for us.
So that's soon. That's right after the teachers. Grocery store workers are coming up next. So yeah, I know some youth that work at places like Brightview that have already been fully vaccinated. So absolutely, those groceries, you will be included in that phase, especially if you're 16 or older. And that's the thing that it's really hard because there are so many priority groups and jostling for those. But I know grocery store workers are coming up soon.
Great. Any other questions for Catherine about COVID? Okay, so now next thing we talk about is meeting dates and times. I know now we're getting into spring sports, and I know I play spring sport as well. So I think me and Catherine are talking about moving this to more of an evening time, so we'll have some more people can come. So will you still want to do Fridays in the evening or move towards a weekday in the evenings?
I think if it works for everyone else, I think Fridays probably work better for me because swim is like the most inconvenient time on the planet. And Friday is my only day off.
Is everyone so good with Fridays? I know no one's really going out, so it doesn't really matter. It's a Friday night.
So I know the volleyball players right now are having time getting to this. Is there any way we could maybe move up the time to like 2:30, or is that too?
I would still be in school. I get out around 2:30, but if I have to come home, I won't be home until like 3-ish. So Lauren can run the meetings for the first half if you want to move the times up. That's also an option.
I honestly think, I don't want to speak for anyone because I'm not doing any fall 2 sports right now. I feel like the later the better for Fridays. I know it's kind of a pain because it's like a Friday night and, we don't want to be here at like 8 o'clock. But just where like no one's really going out, I feel like that would avoid a lot of conflicts. I'm not sure what time we do it at, but I just want to give my thoughts.
Jack, do you want to send out a doodle poll with
Yeah.
different times? So, because maybe one of the options is like Friday at 5 or something.
Yeah, I can send out a poll.
For a few weeknights.
So next thing I actually want to talk about is I was going to send out a big email. So first, on the next meeting, I was planning on inviting Betsy from town. She runs the elections, and since this will be our meeting right before the voter registration deadline for the town election, that'd be a good idea for her to come and kind of talk about what we can do to push out voter registration. I know I was talking with Alyssa, and we're planning on posting some graphics about make sure if you're 18 or older to register to vote, or if you'll turn 18 before the election to pre-register, so you'll be able to vote on April 27th. So all of you here, if you're 16 or older, you can pre-register to vote. Right now, it takes about 5 minutes. It's super easy, and that means if your birthday is April 26th, and if you turn 18 then, you can vote on April 27th. So I'm pre-registered when I got my permit when I was 16. So it's super easy. You don't have to register the party or anything. Just make sure your name's on the rolls. So I was planning on inviting Betsy to our meeting, and I was going to send out some information about voting in the email with Anthony's survey. And I'll send out like a little when to meet or doodle poll so we can figure out our next meeting date. And so we're planning on either the second to last week or last week in March, and we'll figure out time. So does anyone need anything in that email to go out to people? Any surveys or updates people want? I'll put in the poll. I'll put in there. Oh, Jenna.
I was just wondering if you could like send out an official or Alyssa, did you include that in the last email for the Good News Committee? I can't remember.
like include the fact that we're starting it, or
Like how to like to see who wants to do it.
maybe Jack, you could put that in this one. I don't think I ever sent out an official like
Mhm.
poll or anything.
I can
Did
send a
you-
Google form. Sorry, Catherine.
Yeah, Jack, you created a Google form
So I can send out.
for,
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I can send out a Google form with who wants to join the Good News Committee and the Mental Health Working Group. So like that can be one big like, here's new subcommittee working groups, who wants to join, and we can do that, and then we can set up a meeting time for them. And I know on the agenda for the Monday meeting of the Communication Subcommittee, the Good News Committee is on there. So I'll tell people if you want to go join that meeting.
Okay, and
Yes,
it's a good idea for you all to participate in a subcommittee if you do have the time, because that's a lot of times where all the work happens. So Jenna's going to need some help on that Good News Committee, and so you can come to the Communications Committee or the Mental Health Working Group. So.
Okay, so I will put those in there in the doodle poll and information. And yeah, I would highly advise if you're 16 or older, just pre-register. It's super easy, and you don't have to remember to register again. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about before we adjourn? I had a question for everyone. I know it's 4:30, everyone wants to leave, but our next kind of initiative, I think we're starting to finish up mental health. Don't have any ideas what we want our next thing to do? We've worked with Safe versus School. We've done the mask. We've done the logo. We've done mental health. We've done a lot. But anyone have anything they want to focus on that they want to do something about? Anthony, Lauren, then Anthony.
So I was thinking, Nick brought it up, and I've actually been thinking about this. Maybe we could do something focusing on dating violence for teenagers. I know it's kind of an issue that's really looked over and not really focused on, but it's a really important one. I know Anthony and I last year, we were members of the Mentors in Violence Prevention group that they run at the high school with Mrs. Margolis. And then we also have the connection with the SRO with Nick and Megan, and Nick with the White Ribbon Campaign, and Catherine does that too. So I feel like maybe once we, the mental health kind of settles down and we finish working with the schools and the school committee, we can maybe focus on that.
Definitely. I think that can also move on to the next term as well. Anthony?
I really like Lauren's idea for sure. And I was also thinking sort of maybe, I don't have a definite idea about this, but maybe focusing on like town infrastructure, maybe like promoting like more recreational facilities and things of that sort. I'm just thinking about this because this was brought up a lot last night, and maybe sort of getting to obtain more information about what's going on with the possible construction of a new high school, and maybe just learning more about how we could better promote improved infrastructure and recreational facilities throughout Wakefield.
Definitely, that's cool.
I was just going to suggest, based on Anthony's, I always think it's great for adults to come to these meetings, adults that are decision makers in town that you don't have relationships with. So someone like Dan McGrath, who's our recreation director, actually, while I was at this meeting, someone texted me, how do I get to use a town park or a field? I'm like, oh, you have to call Dan McGrath. It might be good for you all to meet him and talk about some of the ideas that you have. He can talk about some, like Anthony said, some upcoming projects. So you can, I didn't realize until last night that they're redoing pickleball courts and tennis courts down at the lake and things like that. And then to also maybe give some feedback on things that young people in the community want.
Definitely. So Anthony, maybe not this next meeting, but the meeting after next meeting, we can invite Dan. Just I don't want to overload next meeting, but if you invite him, that'd be cool to discuss, especially since it's going to start getting warmer. People are going to start going outside more, mass social distancing, all that. So like, what's going on in town? That's a great idea. Okay. Anything else? I don't see anyone. But reminder: if you want to continue your work on the youth council, to apply by April 30th. I'll put the form in the big email I'm sending out. Just if you want to continue working with us, I'm super excited, even though I'm not going to be here. It'd be awesome to have you guys all still around. Okay, anyone else before we adjourn? Anything else? Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I motion.
Thanks, Maggie. Do you hear a second on that?
I second.
Thanks, Uma.
I
Okay, awesome. Alyssa,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Uma,
Yes.
Yana.
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Jenna,
yes.
and William.
Yes.
Awesome.